Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with an update list to the Varolz deck. So I took a lot of the criticism to heart and made a different Varolz deck, and oh my goodness, this deck is the real deal. 4-1, all the games were very tight, but this deck seemed to be better than the rest of the matchups. We'll go through the matchups really quickly here. Spoiler alert, we're just going to do replays. It's hard for me to sit down and do a time where I can just, play 5 matches in a row. And record it. So I'm just going to show you the replays of these. We'll actually, if I can get some time, most likely after the holidays, to stream. We'll start to do those on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But until then, you're just going to get replays. So it was a win versus UI control, a win versus Wilderness Fate combo, a loss 1-2 versus lands, and you'll see that I'm pretty salty about that loss. A 2-0 win versus Bant Oko, and a win versus Mono Green Ramp. So all of those are legit decks. Mono Green Ramp is still one of the most legit decks in the format. UI Control is an up-and-comer. And Wilderness Fate combo is also very, very solid deck, as they can turn 3, turn 4 lock you with the Wilderness Reclamations and the Nexus of Fate. So anyway, let's just go down the list here. You can see that I did go 4-1. You get a qualifier points and play points and 5 treasure chests. So let me show you the actual deck list that I'm running and maybe some changes that I'll make to it. So I'm running 21 lands, and we're not doing any sort of nonsense of digging. No digging nonsense. We're going to let our opponents fill our graveyards for us. It makes us a lot less susceptible to Rest in Peace. In fact, the UI Control player brings in Rest in Peace, and I just kind of scoffed at it because I didn't care. It shuts down the graveyard, but I have a lot of ways to just beat down, and it feels like a wasted card. There's another game when an opponent brought in a Sorcerer's Spyglass, which I also thought was the wrong move, because this is just a beat-down deck with these combo pieces, these synergies, kind of off to the sideline here that can become win conditions. And definitely when we get to the Bant Oko, you'll see exactly how this deck can just outperform. And I played this terribly. Let me restate that. I am not on the top of my game as far as competitive Magic goes. I made a lot of play mistakes. I accidentally F2'd through some turns. I played land drops in the wrong order, so things came into play tapped or whatnot. And I'm sure you can make fun of me of the gameplay when we get to it. But even through the bad gameplay, this deck performed phenomenally well. So let's just go over the kind of the idea of the deck. So Elvish Mystic Llanowar Elves is now the 1-drops. I'm not going to go any of the 3/3 nonsense. We are going to try to ramp Llanowar Elves into the Lovestruck Beast. That's our best play. So we have a first turn Elvish Mystic into a second turn Lovestruck Beast. Rotting Regisaur you can actually get on turn number 2 as well, which is decent. You don't want to start discarding cards that quickly, I don't believe. However, it is still a decent little play. And we can also go like a turn 2 Varolz, or one of the better plays is go a turn 2 Lotleth Troll with regeneration mana open. And that is very, very key. Lotleth Troll you'll see as an all-star in this deck. The ability for this to regenerate is very, very key in this format. There are a lot of destroy effects like Fatal Push and Abrupt Decay and Assassin's Trophy and Supreme Verdicts that Lotleth Troll just gets around, and then you get those mirror type matchups, and Lotleth Troll just becomes a powerhouse versus those matchups. So the other 2-drops we're running is going to be Winding Constrictor. I do think we want to go up to a 3 of in this. I don't know what to cut, though, because all these cards play a role. It might just be Lupine Prototype, our other 2-drop that we do cut down to a 2 of, throw in like another Winding Constrictor, and possibly even throw in another Rhonas, because Rhonas, I will talk about in a second, is just a powerhouse in this deck as well. Lupine Prototype, though, has a really, really good synergy with the Rotting Regisaur and the Lotleth Troll. So both of those, you can basically get down to no cards left in your hand, and you have a 5/5 you only cast 2 for. This starts to be a beatdown card. And this card's just really good with Varolz the Scar Stripped when we do decide to have a card to exile from the graveyard. This is the best one to do so. So I'm kept it as a 4 of. It possibly needs to go down in numbers. So next up on the 3-drop slot, let me move some of these over here. We have move the Pharika over. We talked about the Rotting Regisaur. We talked about Lovestruck Beast. Varolz the Scar Striped is really, really synergistic, both with the Winding Constrictor, as well as just like the Lupine Prototype to put on specifically key cards. You can scavenge onto Smuggler's Copter. You can scavenge onto Hissing Quagmire, and those counters stay. you can scavenge onto the favorite target being the Walking Ballista. You'll see many of these games are going to come down to a board state that's stalled. I top deck a Walking Ballista, cast the Walking Ballista for 2, and then scavenge like a Rotting Regisaur out of the bin and put 7 counters on the Walking Ballista. Even had a game where I had a Winding Constrictor out, and then that equals 14 counters on the Walking Ballista. This can get out of hand, the Walking Ballista, with the Varolz, the Scar Stripped combo. So, is it striped, scar striped, striped, scar striped combo? I'm calling it a stripper, because we do want Varolz to be a stripper. That's the most noble profession known to man, or women, I would say. Anyway, let's go on to the other combos in this deck. Of course, Smuggler's Copter is just our other way to fill the graveyard with 6 Llanowar Elves in this list. It is definitely a potent card. It's another way to get rid of excess cards, like ditching those excess Varolz, or ditching like Rotting Regisaurs when they're too early to kind of go that route. So Smuggler's Copter is a 4 of, I think, is a must in this deck. Now let's get on to these other cards. I actually do think I need to go up into a Jarad Golgari Lich Lord, because this card is amazing. I think the 2 is the right number. Probably Pharika needs to go to the sideboard, even though I do like Pharika. Jarad Golgari Lich Lord wins a lot of these games. Against the Wilderness Reclamation, Fog was shutting down my deck. Jarad just got around Fog. In the Bant Oko, when we have a board state which is completely stalled, Jarad Golgari Lich Lord gets around having a bazillion 3/3 food tokens that my opponent's Oko was generating, and Jarad just sacrifices all of my Rotting Regisaurs that can attack in, all of the other cards. There's also this nice little combo between Varolz and Jarad where you can scavenge onto one target, then sacrifice it and do a ton of damage. So this deck does tend to get these board states that stall up. We have a lot of board state killers in the deck with Rhonas, which can give something +2/+0 and trample. We do have a Death Toucher with the form of Hissing Quagmire that can get kind of interesting with the Rhonas. And then we also have Lotleth Troll that it gives +2/+0 and trample, so big cards like Rotting Regisaur or the Lovestruck Beast then can get pushed through like tokens that are chump blocking them. So Rhonas is good in here too, because Rhonas is easily activated. It's just any other creature with power 4 or greater, that's a Lotleth Troll that's just discarded 2 cards. That's a Rotting Regisaur, a Lovestruck Beast. That is a Lupine Prototype that's out. It's going to be Jarad if there's any creatures in the graveyard, and Pharika. Pharika's kind of neat in this deck too, because we have a lot of multicolored cards in this, and so it's easy to get up to 7. So you just have to have 5 other Devotion, and it's just a few, like Varolz, Lotleth Troll, and a couple Elves have done it before. I don't know with Pharika though. I like the Death Touch aspect of being able to use my graveyard and then to get some Death Touchers out. But I think this is more of a sideboard card, especially like Lupine Prototype. If I were to redo the list, I might go up in a Jarad. I think the 2 Rhonases are good. One more Jarad, and possibly cut the Pharika and the 1 Lupine Prototype and call that, and then 1 more Winding Constrictor and call that good. The sideboard, we have 4 Thoughtseizes. I actually think this card is kind of a liability in the format. Don't bring it in versus green decks, because the Veil of Summer just is a blowout. The card is just super powerful versus Thoughtseize. However, I still do bring that in versus like UI Control. Assassin's Trophy is kind of our panic button in this deck with the 2 of. You can definitely go up and count those. Our aggro package, if we're going against other aggro decks, the Scavenging Ooze, the Gifted Aetherborn typically are the aggro breakers. Gifted Aetherborn is just an insane card to scavenge onto. It's also a very good card to give Rhonas +2/+0 to push through some damage. And the Scavenging Ooze can take care of other graveyard-based strategies. Also has the synergy with the Winding Constrictor. Kraul Harpooner is still like a card that I haven't actually brought in. I bring in versus decks that have flyers, so I'm thinking Spirits. However, there is the combination where you can go Kraul Harpooner with the Jarad Golgari Lich Lord, and so if you have a ton of cards in your graveyard, Harpooner comes in, gets +X/+0, and then you can fling it at your opponent with Jarad Golgari Lich Lord. Alrighty, the last but not least in the deck is 2 Murderous Riders. They're also another great card to scavenge onto because that has lifelink. However, it is just relegated to the sideboard because we want to be a beatdown deck before we want to be a reactive deck. So I thought about running the Black Castle in the deck too, but it becomes a little bit awkward with like Hissing Quagmires coming into play, and then our go-to package being Blooming Marsh and Llanowar Wastes. So the card would only come into play untapped with the 4 Overgrown Tombs and the 2 Swamps. So that is a card that I decided not to go in this particular deck. You could make some argument for maybe cutting some Woodland Cemeteries for it, because Woodland Cemeteries are actually also awkward in this deck because they come into play tapped quite a bit. but you don't want a lot of tap lands in this particular deck. You want your lands coming into play untapped. You want to be maximizing that mana, and you want to be pushing as much damage through as possible. All right, so let's go over to the gameplay now, and let's see if I remember how to do this. Let me figure it out. Let's see. Go to home, cancel. So question mark, not question mark. Settings. Okay, it's in the settings. So let's go to the game history here. Wow, my constructed rating is way low now. Still in this. I have a pretty good limited rating. Haven't actually looked at MTGO in quite some time. Let's go down to the gameplays. We'll start off with the first matchup, which would be versus the U-White control. So here you can see this is where I started playing it. So let's go on to those and replay game number 1. All right, so this one, you're not going to be able to see a lot of hands. I had a mulligan that first hand. I just didn't have, it only had 1 land, so I had to ship back the 1 land. But this hand is pretty decent, and so there's a couple of options you can do. You can throw the Lupine Prototype or the Varolz would be the 2 cards I'd consider getting rid of. Let's see which one I ended up going for. I ended up getting rid of the Lovestruck Beast. Okay, that's interesting because, oh yeah, I'm going for a Scavenger out here, and I'm thinking the Lupine Prototype in the graveyard will make a huge Lotleth Troll after Varolz is out. So we can start with just the Blooming Marsh and pass the turn to our opponent. And I believe this is a UI control matchup. So opponent just throws out an island, and we get to throw out the Lotleth Troll. Oh, so I'm going to do a Smuggler's Copter. That's true. Yeah. Because I was thinking that next turn we can throw the Lotleth Troll and then keep up the protection. Plus, we can actually crew the Smuggler's Copter. So that's much better. See why I don't do games live? Because I mess up on what I think I'm going to be doing because I don't stop and actually think before I do it. So we will go Lotleth Troll here, crew the Smuggler's Copter, attack with the Smuggler's Copter, and I believe it gets Azorius Charmed back to the hand, but we do get some value out of it, so I believe I just throw the Regisaur away. Yeah. So hindsight, I don't know if that's the right play, but you're thinking that Regisaur is probably a liability with discarding cards. We need to stay a bit above card advantage. So this turn I can go just with, I believe another Lotleth Troll is the right move. And that way, if our opponent goes to a Supreme Verdict, we're in great shape. So opponent ends up syncopating this Lotleth Troll for 2, but we do get to keep up the black mana for the Supreme Verdict if our opponent has one. They just comes into play tap land and Teferi, bouncing the Lotleth Troll. Very annoying. I mean, this is a very grindy game that ends up happening here. Want to hit land drops. We do find a land, so this way I can cast both a Smuggler's Copter and a Lotleth Troll. This does sort of open me up to a Supreme Verdict, but I only lose a Lotleth Troll for a Supreme Verdict, so I think that's a pretty decent trade, and it allows me to kill something with Smuggler's Copter. So it ends up being Teferi untapping lands, which makes me think there's like another Azorius Charm in here. And so I do decide just to go the Lupine Prototype, crew the Lupine Prototype, and go and attack in to the Teferi, the 5-drop Teferi. Opponent does not have the Blessed Alliance or the Azorius Charm to protect it, and Teferi ends up being a very, very expensive cantrip. So opponent gets out an Elspeth here, which is quite problematic because it's going to be able to kill the Lupine Prototype, but our opponent is tapped out, so we can kill the Teferi here. Like, I could go for a couple plays here. I could ditch everything, the Lotleth Troll, and try to kill the Elspeth, but then the Teferi bounces something. And so I decide just to go after the Smuggler's Copter onto Teferi. Opponent blocks in here, forces off regeneration. We do take Elspeth down, and then we have a Smuggler's Copter and a Varolz left. In hindsight, let's just back up here. Opponent blocks like this to spend my black mana, so I'm definitely thinking a Supreme Verdict is coming down here. But we still end up having a Varolz and a Smuggler's Copter, which is still a pretty decent play if our Lotleth Troll does get ditched. I'm not sure if I should have made that attack. In hindsight, maybe just kept back the Lotleth Troll, or kept back the black mana and not attacked in. However, my opponent does not do anything on that turn, so we're going to go ahead and crew the Smuggler's Copter with Varolz, scavenge on the Smuggler's Copter, go ahead and attack in just with a Lotleth Troll, which I think ends up being a bad play because I think my opponent does have a Blessed Alliance. So we lose our Smuggler's Copter. And hindsight, what I should have done is scavenged on the Lotleth Troll and attacked with both of them into Elspeth. But that was a play mistake there. Opponent gets to dig through time, fill back up the hand. And now we're in a bit of a dilemma here. We do have some good protection versus like Supreme Verdict because we can keep both of our guys alive. And our opponent does decide to do a Supreme Verdict, but allows me to sacrifice the Lupine Prototype to the Varolz, which also has the ability to regenerate, and also regenerate our good old Lotleth Troll. Our opponent does get rid of the soldiers, should have attacked first with them, and it goes with Teferi and can bounce the Lotleth Troll, which is, it's fine. This is still annoying. We're still in a bit of a pickle, but we do see that Walking Ballista here. So I decided to go Walking Ballista on 2, and then scavenge a Rotting Regisaur onto the Walking Ballista. This allows me to attack in with Varolz. I'm trying to bait a big block so I can just shoot 2 of them down, kill that 3rd soldier. I want to get them out of the way, and then we get to kill Teferi here, which I think is the bigger problem. Elspeth, hindsight, maybe I should have shot down both Elspeth and Teferi, but this allows me to get another Supreme Verdict out of my opponent's hand, shoot down Elspeth down to a... got to keep 1 on here so we can protect the Varolz. But we just lose a Walking Ballista and really, really hamper the Elspeth. And Elspeth just ends up being able to +1. Would really put my opponent in the lead here, except we do have 2 Lotleth Trolls. And that's fine and dandy. We'll go with a Lupine Prototype Scavenge just so we can attack and enforce a block. I think that's kind of smart. And that way we can now put down an Overgrown Tomb. And then go with a double Lotleth Troll. I'm not sure if I do that here, because my opponent counters one of them. Yeah, decides to absorb, so I'll just put the other one out. I don't think it's worth it to try to keep up regeneration mana. Opponent does kill Elspeth to kill the Varolz. I decide to keep the Lotleth Troll alive. I think I F6 through that. That was one of my play mistakes, because I F6 through the Varolz or the Elspeth, and in hindsight probably should have kept Varolz alive. I don't know. Maybe a trample's better here. Blessed Alliance, though, kills the Lotleth Troll. So now we're down to 1 card in hand, and it's the Lovestruck Beast. So at least we can start putting some pressure on our opponent. But the second dig through time is going to dig, and our opponent's going to start going for the Gaia Reach Sanitarium to get rid of excess lands. And that both the Castle Ardenvale and the Castle Vantress are going to be really potent cards for my opponent. Decided to go with the Hissing Quagmire and attack in with those 2, that because it protects against another Blessed Alliance. At least we get some soldiers out of the way and get in for some damage. Nothing too crazy here. Going to keep the Overgrown Tomb in our hand for the Gaia Reach Sanitarium activation. Opponent doesn't do anything. And the good news is, though, we've got rid of a lot of threats here. It's 2 Teferis, an Elspeth, and a big Teferi. So depending on these control decks, they don't run a lot of win conditions. So I'm thinking they're getting quite low to win cons here. And there's another Absorb, so there's 2 Absorbs, 2 Azorius Charms out of the way. Yeah, it's definitely our opponent's getting down to the wire for both removal spells and threats. Down to a Walking Ballista top deck. The Lovestruck Beast gets countered. Opponent decides not to go Castle Ardenvale to make a human to block it, but we'll put a Walking Ballista on 2. But I mean, look at our time clock. I'm trying to play faster at this point, because I'm like, man, if we have to go to a game 3, it is going to come down to the wire of who actually has time left, and we're kind of even here. Opponent decides to go for a Field of Ruin, just to destroy a land, just to thin out more. And there's Jace. So 2 more Planeswalkers with Narset and Jace. And here I can still go with the Walking Ballista attack in. And I think we decided to do that. Actually, in hindsight, I think I should have pumped up my Walking Ballista. So opponent gets to block with the human to keep Narset alive. Yeah, I think that might have been better. Still would have gone down to a 1-2, though. But I could have got rid of 2. Anyway, Narset decides to tick up, so I'll just finish it off with Walking Ballista. And opponent's going to find nothing. Misses with the Narset activation, which was very lucky for us, Because our opponent doesn't have a lot of lands left either. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're probably halfway through their lands. So that was just an unfortunate reveal with Narset. We've all been there. Probably hit a Planeswalker and a couple lands. So the Sanitarium is going to loot. And let's see. Uh-oh. See if I can skip through it. We're having trouble with the replay here. So hopefully I'll find what it does. It might be a broken replay. Well, that's no bueno. Good old MTGO software. Yep. Oh, that's too bad. Because I wanted to show exactly what happened here with the list. Let's see if maybe I can load this up again. See if we can actually get to that point. If we see if the replay is just broken. If so, that's embarrassing. Because that's kind of a long drawn-out game where we're at, so hopefully the replay isn't broke. These things become corrupt very easily, especially longer games, and then you don't get to see the end of it. But in short story, though, what ends up happening is we do find another, I believe another Varolz, or a Jarad, and just start flinging things at our opponent. Our opponent just runs out of everything. I believe they find another Jace Architect of Thought, so we take care of the first Jace Architect of Thought, and then they get the second one. And it was I think just a big Jarad that just ends up finishing off the game. But let's see if we can just run through it here. We're getting close to where we were with the replay before it broke. But yeah, so what I really like about this deck is, look at this. These control decks, usually when it goes this far and they have this many lands, it's very tough for an aggro deck to keep up. But with all of the cards that gain so much value, like the Lotleth Trolls and the Varolz and the Walking Ballistas, it gives you another angle to victory besides just attacking in with big dumb creatures. And just, I'm very, very impressed with Varolz, very impressed with Walking Ballista. I think last time around that was kind of the two cards we weren't playing, and that was the big difference. So here's where the replay broke, as the second activation. So it broke right here at the Golgari Sanitarium. And, yep. Womp womp. Okay, so that's exactly what ended up happening, though. I think my opponent started to whiff on land drops, too. We end up being able to pump in the Walking Ballista. I believe it's actually another Varolz that comes down, and we're able to then get rid of a 2-drop, or I'd be able to attack and Smuggler's Copter this next turn and kill Jace. And then we're able to get another Varolz, and the Varolz then starts to ping up on the Walking Ballistas, and that's how game 1 ends. Game number 2, hopefully this one will show, is something I decided to keep this 5-lander because we do have the Lotleth Troll. It's so good versus our opponent, and it also allows us to have that turn 2 Lotleth Troll and protect the Lotleth Troll. Even though I don't know if it's a big deal versus Azorius, because they can go like Detention Sphere or Azorius Charm. But this play ends up being, or this keep ends up probably being pretty bad, because we draw another land, and that's just card disadvantage at that point. But I mean, this deck is one of those decks that can utilize a land flood with like a big Varol Walking Ballista combo. Opponent's really not doing anything here. Didn't find like an early Narset or an early Teferi. So we can go with the Lotleth Troll, attacking with both of them, so the Blessed Alliance can't take care of the Lotleth Troll. And then here I'll just put out no, I decide not to go with the Elf because I'm going to ditch it and just go for an attack route. So I'm putting a Field of Runes to find the second island, which makes me think there is a Supreme Verdict. That seems like a pretty bad Supreme Verdict just for an Elvish Mystic. But it is what it is. Maybe opponent has multiples. But still, that's not what you want to be doing. And we do get that second Lotleth Troll. Throw it out. We can attack in. And I think I do decide to pitch the Llanowar Elves just to put my opponent on a quicker clock. And, put some pressure that a 3-2 is going to deal to our opponent. So Teferi's going to balance Lotleth Troll, and then Rest in Peace is going to get rid of our graveyard. But here it's like, okay, the only thing that uses my graveyard is Varolz, which is a 3 of in the deck. So I'm definitely okay with taking that trade. And here we can attack in. It also makes me know that there's no Azorius Charm. So now we know we can get rid of Teferi, which is something that my opponent can do, like Sorcery Speed Supreme Verdicts that I no longer have to deal with. And we get a 2 Walking Ballista out here just in case like another Teferi comes down, and then we can pop it. So I decide to allow that to happen, not pop off the Walking Ballista. Ballista gets returned, my opponent gets to draw a card, but there's Teferi number 2 that's gone. And the thing is, like, another thing with my opponent's Rest in Peace is shutting off their Dig. So Dig Through Time is now an 8-mana spell, which is huge in this matchup. And it'd be interesting to see my opponent's hand to see exactly if that's what they're doing. So I'm not going to pump some more mana into the Walking Ballista, as we do want to keep the Lotleth Troll regeneration up. And there's a Cast Out, which my opponent goes for Walking Ballista, which is another iffy play. I guess like going into Azorius Charm / Blessed Alliance is something that can take care of this Lotleth Troll, and going on the Cast Out on the Ballista might just be a better play, but I don't think so. So we're gonna go ahead and throw out the Rotting Regisaur and throw out the other Lotleth Troll. We have both of the regenerations up for the Lotleth Troll, attack in for 2. Get my opponent down to an 8, and then my opponent is really playing on their heels now. They have to find a answer to both the Rotting Regisaur, which a Supreme Verdict is a fill bag card for just a 1 Rotting Regisaur, and that's the second Supreme Verdict. Again, not going towards that delve for the... I don't know if my opponent even has Treasure Cruises in here. They could easily have Treasure Cruise, but Dig Through Time nonetheless. And we find Elvish Mystic. I'm just going to go ahead and attack in with both of them and get my opponent down to 4. I decided I wasn't going to ditch one to the Lotleth Troll because this is a 2-turn clock anyway, and it's a 1-turn clock and a 2-turn clock. They take care of one of the Lotleth Trolls. Narset comes down, digs and finds an Azorius Charm, I believe, is what my opponent found there. So we will attack in with both, and opponent gets the Azorius Charm, one of them. And attacked in Narset. Yep, now we ditch the elf and kill the Narset, so Narset can't find another card. So back up there. That's why one of the reasons Elvish Mystic end up being a good play to keep in. Teferi decides to draw a card, which is kind of weird. Teferi, I think you need to tuck Lotleth Troll at that point. I guess they're YOLOing for a card. But here we have just an activation with Hissing Quagmire and attacking for both, and that's lethal. So even if my opponent has a Blessed Alliance, we ditch the Lotleth Troll to the other Lotleth Troll, and it ends up being a 2-0 win versus U-White control. All right, so the next one that we played against is going to be the Dig Through Time Nexus of Fate combo. So I don't know what I'm up against. It seems like a pretty reasonable hand with the turn 2 Lotleth Troll that can be protected. Actually not. We should have gone Overgrown Tomb. That was a play mistake because Overgrown Tomb would have been better here. As it would have been able to protect the Lotleth Troll. And then I mess up here and put a Hissing Quagmire. So I'm all over the place in this game, just not playing things in the sequence they should be playing. So should have been able to attack in for 2 there, getting my opponent down to a 19, and have the Lovestruck Beast out this turn anyway. So another Hissing Quagmire. We'll go ahead and attack with everything and get my opponent down to a 12, and then throw out a Lotleth Troll. Probably should have gone Rhonas there. I was thinking there was a counter spell in hand and didn't want to get the Rhonas countered because Rhonas is definitely a card that can push through the damage. And opponent's still not really doing anything, decide attacking with everything. And this one goes down to a 3, and then we put Rhonas out. And I actually had the win there too. So, I mean, that's how bad I played this game, and the deck still came through with me. We had 3 damage right there with Walking Ballista if we would have gone instead of Rhonas. So opponent decides to, believe gets the Wilderness no, Tameo, that's correct. And Tameo does name Fog and finds one, I believe, or does name Nexus of Fate and finds Nexus of Fate. And so 2 Nexus of Fate do go in the hand. So my opponent does have a Fog in hand, so we're just going to attack him for everything. Opponent fogs and prevents all the damage. but the Walking Ballista comes down and finishes off the game. So my play mistake didn't end up costing me the game. It still worked out. And that was game number 1. Game number 2 is just the ridiculousness of Wilderness Reclamation in this format. So we keep a pretty solid hand here with Llanowar Elves and Smuggler's Copter. I mean, I think it's keepable. We have Jarad, Golgari, Lich Lord that can get through fog, so you're going to snap keep anything that can do that. And Smuggler's Copter is also going to be able to help us find the cards we need. I decided to go for a Thoughtseize, but Veil of Summer is such a broken card. Would have gone, I guess Smuggler's Copter as well, so it's not that big of a deal, but Veil of Summer just cantrips and counters a Thoughtseize. Search for Azcanta comes out here, and we just don't have enough pressure to really get going. I decided to crew the Smuggler's Copter, attacking for 3, get my opponent down to a 17, ditch a Forest, and then we can throw out a Rotting Regisaur here. And so our opponent's going to be able to dig with the Search for Azcanta, and then just put out a Wilderness Reclamation, which is really broken with Search for Azcanta, as now my opponent's be able to untap all of the lands and have 8 mana open here on my turn. So I decided to throw away the Lotleth Troll because Jarad just seems like a better card. We can attack him with both, and then discard a card, discard the Llanowar Elves here. And here comes the Supreme Will, which is going to try to dig for a fog and does find a fog. So 10 damage down the bin here, which would have been the difference, I think, with Jarad, Golgari, Lich Lord, except I do think we get locked out right here. So Search for Azcanta throws away to Blast Zone. They have the Wilderness Reclamation out and are able to dig through time to find the Nexus of Fate. Did miss a land, though, huh? So there, yeah, but that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So we still get Nexus Tear. Yeah, so Nexus, turn 4 Nexus, or turn 5, I guess that is. Another Wilderness Reclamation. I give it one more turn to see if we actually survive this, but Azcanta just can now just almost get a Nexus there, but then activating again does get Nexus, so we just lose here. So we had one more turn to try to do something. We can go Rotting Regisaur. We can attack in with stuff. And this is going to get fogged. So if I guess our opponent didn't have a fog there, we win. But there's the fog. And then now we are definitely locked out. So Wilderness Reclamation number 3. This allows to untap. Allows to find the Nexus of Fate, and then they can just dig twice more with Azcanta, and you're locked out. You literally mill to death. So here's a little bit of a moral dilemma. Do you make your opponent play these out because they literally can't win without clocking themselves because it takes forever to do these triggers, or do you scoop it up? So, I mean, this is why this deck sometimes doesn't see play on MTGO, but saw a ton of play on Arena, and so it didn't get banned on MTGO because it wasn't like as horrible with the time clock. All right, anyway, since then they have added a time clock to MTG Arena Best of 3. So game number 3, we start off with a pretty solid hand here with a first turn Thoughtseize that cannot be veiled, and we decided to just take the Growth Spiral. So the other revealed cards were Nexus, Supreme, Nexus. Possibly Supreme Will would be the right card. I just didn't want my opponent to ramp though with the Growth Spiral. Seems like a pretty slow hand. So we can get out the Rotting Regisaur here and really start to get the beat down and force those fogs out. We'll throw the Hissing Quagmire away. It's an unneeded card. And then attacking with the Rotting Regisaur. Opponent decides not to do anything, and then so I'll go for Jarad. And if Jarad gets countered by that Supreme Will, I'm actually okay with that. So my opponent does decide to go for the counterspell on Jarad. I'm not quite sure that's the right play for my opponent. I think they just need to go for it. Go for Wilderness Reclamation and try to dig for those particular cards. So we were able to attack in for 7 again and go for it with Varolz here. Varolz does survive. And then discard, or we're going to go with the Assassin's Trophy just to kill the Lumbering Falls. That is one of the win conditions in this deck, is activating Lumbering Falls. Supreme Will allows my opponent to dig for another card, and we get to attack in though for 9, which does get fogged, which allows us to throw out this Walking Ballista on 2, which does not get countered. That's just an opt. And with Varolz and a potential huge creatures in the graveyard, we can just win with Walking Ballista. So, opponent really needs another fog. We'll go ahead and attack it with everything. Does find another fog, gets the Thing in the Ice down to a 2 of. And we'll pass the turn rather than... See, I decided, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go for Scavenging Jarad, but I'm like, I can just put a card on the Walking Ballista. My opponent ends up whiffing, doesn't really find anything for Thing in the Ice, so I'm thinking we know there's 2 Nexus of Fates still in the hand, and so 2 more cards left in my opponent's hand. It must not have been a fog to then be able to block enough, and because I believe if we put counters on Walking Ballista, that's 6 damage as well. So end of turn, put a counter, then tack in and put a counter, and that is lethal. So end up taking that game down. The next one, which I'm kind of salty about, is lands. And I think I did some bad keeps plus some bad draws. So this is definitely an awesome hand here with the first turn Llanowar Elves into a either second turn Lovestruck Beast or Rotting Regisaur. I mean, that's exactly why you play this deck. They're both just beaters. Opponent starts with a Once Upon a Time. Can't wait till that card gets banned. Honestly, this deck could easily use a Once Upon a Time as well. You could go like lower counts in particular cards just to find the ones you need. We're going to go ahead and attack with the Lovestruck Beast and the RBO Grazer, so my opponent's doing a good job ramping. But the Jarad Golgari Lich Lord is definitely a good card in this matchup because if they do get zombies, we can still just do the win with the Jarad. So Jarad comes down, Rotting Regisaur comes down, Growth Spiral comes down. Our opponent now has the mana for the Hour of Promise, which the Hour of Promise does come down, finds a bunch of zombies. However, we can just throw out a Walking Ballista, and because we didn't quite have lethal because we needed, or did we have lethal there? No, we had 12 damage on board. That's correct. So I couldn't quite win, but this does allow us to have lethal next turn because we do have 14 damage on board. So it just finds a bunch of Golos, finds a bunch of zombies. I don't know if there's another Radiant Fountain my opponent could have found. I can't really attack in for anything meaningful, and we can just sacrifice the Rotting Regisaur, sacrifice the Lovestruck Beast, and then Walking Ballista twice to the face. So awesome combo there with Jarad and sacrificing for 6 mana to be able to do 12 damage there, and the Walking Ballista. Game number 2 was... I was kind of salty about this because we had the first turn Thoughtseize. So I'm like, okay, I can rip out an Hour Promise and then feel really good about this matchup. So we go Thoughtseize, and I take Golos because the other cards that were in the hand were like an Ugin without any ramp. And so I'm like, I'm not too worried. Golos ramps into the Ugin. If I just take the Golos, I can probably beat down a lot quicker. And that, I was feeling really, really good here. We do end up not really having a fast clock, though. I probably should have gone Pharika there. Probably should have gone something else. But opponent does find another Growth Spiral, which ramps into another land. And this is what made me really salty. So the 2 cards my opponent drew were Growth Spiral into Hour of Promise, which then goes and gets the zombies, which at this point is just too rough to be able to be attacking in. Rotting Regisaur is still the card you want to run here because it... I don't know why I did Walking Ballista. I definitely should have gone Rotting Regisaur and kept up a regeneration mana and attacked in. That would have been the smart play. I don't know what I was thinking with the Walking Ballista. However, it doesn't really matter because Ugin comes in. Oh yeah, because we knew Ugin was coming down. That's correct. So I'm like, okay. But I should have just forced Ugin to do the -3 to exile everything and then gone with the Walking Ballista. But it's just over there with that ramp into Ugin. That is just a very good addition now to this Hour Promise deck with the Ugin. So... on to game number 3. Possibly again, if I would have Thoughtseized out that Ugin, I could have won the game. But we are still looking very, very far behind with the lands being out there to just generate zombie after zombie after zombie. So this one I decided to keep because, okay, I'm going to go with the Lovestruck Beast beatdown. This is fine. We'll have a turn 1 play and then a turn 2 attack of the human. Probably shouldn't have brought in the Murderous Rider, but, you know, to fairies and whatnot in the deck, I think Murderous Rider is fine. We attack in here, get the Lovestruck Beast out, down to an 18. Opponent does get to fairy, bounces the Lovestruck Beast, and I get salty because in this situation, I have 3 more Lovestruck Beasts and 6 more Elves that can then turn on the Lovestruck Beast. And so I'm like, I am feeling really confident. And, oh, and 4 Walking Ballistas that can be cast for just as a 1/1 to then get the Lovestruck Beast and then attack the Teferi. However, I miss all of them. And then my opponent gets out our Elvish Rejuvenator, which is a blocker to keep Teferi alive, finds the Field of Dead with it. I'm just not having it here. We attack and our opponent blocks. We can go with another Rotting Regisaur, which I decided to go for a Varolz because now we can discard a Rotting Regisaur. But we really need to find a 1-drop to get this other Lovestruck Beast online. And then here I forget that Teferi ticks up, meaning that Teferi allows for an instant speed cast on the Hour of Promise, which can go get 2 more Field of the Deads, which just absolutely can. I don't know why my opponent didn't get 2 more Field of Deads. Possibly there's one in hand. No, I don't know what's up with that. But does able to just generate those zombie resources, and I still can't even take care of Teferi. Teferi ticks back up again, creates a bazillion zombie tokens. And I'm like, okay, if there's not another Hour of Promise, we're fine. So we go and attack in with the Scavenge on the Lotleth Troll. Attack. And opponent does have the Hour of Promise, which I think I make a mistake here, though. No, because I'm just lethal. It's just lethal on board here because my opponent can just sacrifice the field passage. So this blocks the 1 so they can keep alive. And then Field of Passage brings 4 more zombies in, and then that's attacking in for more damage than I can take care of. So that was lethal. So that was pretty much the nuts. 2 games in a row, my opponent has really good top decks, really good nuts there to finish off the game. So game number, this would be game number 4. We start off with a very, very reasonable hand with the Lotleth Troll and the Lovestruck Beast. Great curve here because we're going to get a 1/1. And we're also going to get a... Oops, I think I skipped a match. Oh, we'll go back to the other match here in a second because there should be a Marta... No, this is Oko. Yeah, this is Oko, not Ramp. So here we have Lotleth Troll. I decided to go and get a human out just in case. I mean, Oko will just turn my Lovestruck Beast into a 3/3. Opponent puts out a Lox and Smiter, which is a pretty good way to clog up the board. And you'll see in this game, the board just gets insanely clogged. I can't really attack into Lovestruck Beast. Opponent just continues to create a bunch of cards. There's Gideon that can now create a bunch of 2/2s. I am just about ready to scoop here. But we do have Jarad. Decide to go ahead and throw out a Rotting Regisaur. No, Lovestruck Beast. Yeah, that's actually probably better because we don't want to be discarding cards yet. And I was hoping my opponent would make a trade with like a Loxodon and Smiter because we have to push through those 4/4s. And opponent decides to deck and stone the 2 Lovestruck Beasts, gives me 2 clue tokens. Decided to block on a Gideon with a 1/1. Don't want to take unnecessary damage. Here we can go Rotting Regisaur and then crack a clue to keep Jarad alive if we want to. And that's what we'll do end of turn, is go ahead and ditch the Jarad now because Winding Constrictor is much better. And this allows us to cast the Winding Constrictor, which is pretty good for the Walking Ballista. So here I can put some counters on the Walking Ballista and then shoot down Oko so Oko can't switch my Winding Constrictor with one of his cards. So he already did that with the Lotleth Troll and was able to switch it. Decides just to, this time, just pump up and make another blocker. And get in here, decides to just put out a 2/2, not embling it. I think my opponent should have been more aggressive. So we do lose... What'd I do? I backed up there. We lost. We end up losing the Walking Ballista. Oh, turned it in. There it is. Turned it into a 2/2. So, or turned it into a 5/5, which a 3/3 with 2 counters on it. So Varolz here was a good pickup, though. Allows us to start scavenging on to other cards. Opponent decides to tick up Oko and dumb down the Rotting Regisaur, which is definitely the wrong move. In this scenario, I think you have to take care of Varolz or Winding Constrictor. So, and then decides to attack him with the Gideon, which is also a terrible move because it allows us to get a Rotting Regisaur in the graveyard. So now I can start protecting the cards that I want to stick around. Opponent decides to like block a bunch, so at least I'm getting rid of tokens here with kind of dead cards, and I'm able to protect Varolz from being switched. Opponent probably should have switched for a Winding Constrictor here rather than go for another tick up. So I think that was a misplay by my opponent too, because Winding Constrictor is going to get out of hand. Decides to tick up and throw Rhonas. I guess that's reasonable because Rhonas is able to allow things to push through. But now we're able to protect the Winding Constrictor from the switcheroo and attack him with Varolz, which my opponent just throws a bird in front of, which we're still reasonably getting rid of resources each turn. Find the Lovestruck Beast, cast the Lovestruck Beast. We've got another 1/1 human. Here's where our opponent does decide, whoa, it's going way fast here, decides to Emblem Gideon and just tick up Oko, deciding not to go for Varolz or Winding Constrictor again, which was the wrong play. Which now we have the Jarad. We just need enough mana now to scavenge onto one creature and then Jarad. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is hopefully my opponent just messes up and we can get enough mana to, and I might have actually had it. No, we need more creatures in the graveyard. That's right. So decide to put Rhonas in the graveyard because that's a great scavenge target. We get Walking Ballista here. Decide to do Walking Ballista and then scavenge onto Walking Ballista and attacking with stuff. Get rid of some more resources. We can scavenge again on Walking Ballista. And here you saw I had a ton of scavenge cards on. Sorry, it's going really, really quick here. Lupine Prototype and the Rhonas on the Walking Ballista. And I did the math and I couldn't quite kill my opponent. So I'm like, okay, Oko's just going to turn my Walking Ballista into a kind of worthless big beater. So might as well kill Oko and kill the Gideon and keep our Walking Ballista at 1, which then my opponent finds the Dromoka's command to fight, which is fine. We're able to get some good resources out Walking Ballista. The second Gideon comes down, which is a problem, but definitely not Oko problem. So we have a Varolz and a Winding Constrictor. We can still scavenge onto stuff, still start attacking in and force out some resources. And this time I decide to go for Jarad and hope my opponent does not draw a Oko, which my opponent did not draw Oko, so we have a big 10-10. We do not have a scavenge card, but we're able to sacrifice the 2 big creatures and do perfect lethal to our opponent with sacrificing a food token for 10 damage. So we get rid of, both those cards. Winding Constrictor and the Varolz that equaled 10 damage. Perfect. All right, so game number 2. So that was kind of cool. It was awesome coming back from like a Gideon and an Oko. 2 things that if you let stay out tend to take over the game. So this I ended up deciding to keep because of a Lotleth Troll Winding Constrictor combo, which is also an insane combo. Opponent goes the Llanowar Elf. We can start off with the Lovestruck Beast, which we top decked. Opponent goes for a Loxodon Smiter. And here we can get the Lotleth Troll. And opponent decides to be the aggressive player. I could ditch everything a Lotleth Troll and then lose to like a Dromoka's command. So I decide, let's just go with the Gilded Goose, or go with not blocking. Opponent puts out a Gilded Goose and a Fleecemane Lion. And then we can throw out a Winding Constrictor, and this gives us a lot more options versus our opponent. So I was disappointed I didn't hit a land drop here, but here I can block and throw away a creature, and then opponent decides to show us the Dromoka's command, so it allows us to react to it and throw another creature to a Lotleth Troll, and then kill this Loxodon Smiter. And I decided to throw a bunch of creatures to it to make a 10-9, so that I can be the kind of beatdown deck. And here we're able to just attack in with the Lotleth Troll. I'm just going to throw the Rotting Regisaur away. It's going to be a useless card here. We want the Lupine Prototype to be able to attack and block. Unfortunately, Oko is the last card in my opponent's hand, which turns it into a big dumb 12-12. But we can still be attacking with a 5-5 and a 12-12. So we'll do that to start pressuring our opponent and force out 2 blocks. Opponent decides to put the Loxodon Smiter and the Llanowar Elves on the Lupine Prototype, which I'm liking because it's one less resource I have to take care of. Corsair's annoying because it's going to give my opponent some stability, but we do draw the land here to be able to cast one of the Lovestruck Beasts, attack in with the Lotleth Troll, which forces off another block, which ends up being the Corsair, because my opponent's wanting to get the Fleecemane Lion up to Hexproof Indestructible, which my opponent does do at sorcery speed. Thank you for that. We can now attack in with the Lovestruck Beast and the... probably shouldn't have done the tokens there, but get my opponent down to a 2, which allows us now to just top deck a Walking Ballista or a Jarad, or just get the Jarad up high enough. That's correct. Opponent, though, is getting kind of scary with these resources. I can only take care of... I can't really take care of anything per turn because now the other human gets swapped. So that's my opponent has swapped it with a food token. And now it's getting kind of rough because can't attack into my opponent's Indestructible Fleecemane Lion, And my Lovestruck Beast just can't even attack. Opponent's getting food galore, but they are down to 2. I think my opponent should have been sacrificing some of those foods to get some life total. We do find the Elvish Mystic, which allows us attacking with everything, which we will do. No, I decided not to, huh? Probably should have there. No, because I'd get traded down. So opponent's got another Fleecemane Lion. We just need enough mana here for the Jarad. Oh, that's right. That's correct. So we wanted to keep those alive because we just need to top deck into another land. So my opponent made a mistake there. Instead of making a food into a food token, or a food into a 3/3 token, they needed to dumb down my Elvish Mystic. It wouldn't have mattered. However, it would have kept me off the mana to be able to go the Jarad combo, bring Jarad back, and sacrifice, have the mana to sacrifice. So we did top deck the land anyway, so it didn't matter. Able to sacrifice now on the yeah, I guess this replay just broke too. But able to sacrifice Jarad onto a Lovestruck Beast to do 5 damage and just win the game. So that was the Oko match. Alrighty, last but not least is this fun one versus Mono Green Ramp. And here we have a decent opener with Winding Constrictor, Lotleth Troll. Again, this is what you love to see, this combo. So good. The snakes and zombies. And even better with the Llanowar Elves. So now we have the turn 2 play with making Lotleth Troll be able to regenerate. So decide to go that play. Now my opponent can't even attack into the Lotleth Troll with the Burning Emissary. Rhonas comes down. And then we're able to, this turn, get out the Winding Constrictor and then keep up the Lotleth Troll. I decided to go aggressive here. Possibly shouldn't have, but I'm like, yeah, we'll just throw the Varolz away. I've got 2 of them. But this allows for my opponent to go for a Ghalta and attack in with the Rhonas, which I have to take damage to. So hindsight, that was pretty bad. But we do have a Walking Ballista that we can put down. I decide not to do anything here. Surok comes down because I want to make a trade with the Ghalta with the Hissing Quagmire. So we go Hissing Quagmire activated. I have a couple of decisions here. I could go to a 1 and let the Ghalta just completely go through, and then just block the Rhonas. So block here and regenerate. And then my opponent loses this, and this I go to 1. But I'm like, ooh, that's pretty rough to then have to block a Ghalta the following turn as a 12/12. So I decide I am going to make the blocks on the Rhonas here as well, and lose my Winding Constrictor, but I do kill the Ghalta and the Surok. So feeling quite good here. We put out a Walking Ballista onto. Oh no, we have another dead. Geez, these replays suck. Let's see if this one actually can. I did do some pausings there in it. No, it just looks like their entire ones are broken here. All right, come on, you can do it. Well, I think we broke them. Let's go out of here and then come back in and see if it does it. There we go. Let's see. Close some of these other... Oh, it's got like 9 million matches up. All right, see if this one will actually go through. Apologize again for the replays. So same thing. We got the Llanowar. And opponent's going for the same old play. But this is just... See those kind of the holy trinity there with the Varolz, Winding Constrictor, Lotleth Troll? Just makes your Rotting Regisaurs and Lupine Prototype so good. Like, if we would have had one of those, like a Rotting Regisaur that then can trade with the... Like Surok, keep it alive and then take some damage. We could then scavenge it on to a Lotleth Troll, and it's bigger at that point than Ghalta. Can block a 12/12. So see if we get past here with this other block. Yeah, I wonder if hindsight if it was the right play just to do the other blocks and then go to a 1. All right, so looks like, hey, we got through the replay here. So Walking Ballista out, and our opponent now has to activate Rhonas to be able to attack in. So we can just chump block with Walking Ballista and then shoot down the Burning Emissary, which isn't the greatest play. Like, we needed another mana to basically block with the Lotleth Troll. We do have a chump blocker here, though, so we won't be taking any damage from Rhonas activating. But Rhonas does find... Just going to activate on the Paradise Druid. Okay. So the problem here, though, is we do have to block with the Lotleth Troll on. Oh, that's fine, yeah, because it regenerates it. But we do take the trample damage still. Pharika ends up being kind of weak here, as we can't really do much. So Vivien finds a creature, and we can go Pharika and make a Death Toucher. But this puts us in a pretty bad dilemma. I needed something other than the Blossoming Marsh, so I decided, okay, I can feign the attack, kill Vivien, and hopefully my opponent just doesn't do the right thing, which is just to pump up Rhonas on one guy. Because pumping up Rhonas on one guy here makes it so Rhonas can attack, and we only have 3 blockers with another Death Touch Snake. So we can put 1 on Rhonas and then 2 on the Llanowar Elves and still take 3 damage. So ends up being, yeah, something we can't block through. We actually end up taking... We take 4 damage there. So we need to have Pharika online to be able to start chump blocking or blocking these hasty creatures. Anyway, that was game number 1. Game number 2, we decided to bring in, like, I guess I don't have a sideboard tech here. We decided to bring in, like, the Scavenging Ooze and the Gifted Aetherborns because they're both quite strong in this matchup. This is definitely a snap key for the Llanowar Elves. Llanowar Elves allows us to put in a... Lovestruck Beast on turn number 2. And then we have next turn, we're able to do a Rotting Regisaur if we want. Let's see if I decide to do that. I can't remember if I did or not. Decided, yep, Rotting Regisaur. So we're actually the beatdown deck now versus our opponent. Goes with a Nullhide Ferox, but it's not going to be able to trade reasonably with the Rotting Regisaur. Rotting Regisaur, we decided to get rid of Lotleth Troll and attack in with the Regisaur. Opponent does not decide to make the trade with the Ferox. But this does allow us to then get out the Walking Ballista and take down the Paradise Druid, which is good because it takes down both Devotion and another mana. So Burning Emissary comes down here and does find another Paradise Druid and another Elvish Mystic. My opponent's getting kind of out of cards here. Does not attack in. We do have to discard a Lovestruck Beast here because I think the Varolz is a little more versatile in this situation. We are able to cast the Varolz, which is now able to get the Rotting Regisaur on the Walking Ballista. So my opponent has to find a way to get rid of the Walking Ballista. Surrock with Galta. My opponent makes a mistake here and gives Surrock haste rather than Galta haste, which is kind of weird because I just can block Surrock. I mean, it wasn't going to die either way because now I can just scavenge on the Rotting Regisaur, which I end up doing and then shooting my opponent for 8. And then last but not least game, we have another great... a kind of a risky keep here. We have Blooming Marsh, but 2 Elvish Mystic, and the reason why I keep versus another aggro-based deck is they can't kill your Elvish Mystics. So in this case, this scenario, a 1-lander is perfectly fine. They're not getting Wild Slashed or Fatal Pushed. You can just go Blooming Marsh, Elvish Mystic. You have 2 draws to draw a land. If not, you're basically having another land drop with the Elvish Mystic. So this turn we could just cast an Elvish Mystic, but we do get the land drop, so it allows us for a Scavenging Ooze and an Elvish Mystic. My opponent brought in Sorcerer's Spyglass, which I think is bad. I think how my opponent wins this matchup is by beating me down, not by trying to react to kind of my silly synergies. So here the Sorcerer's Spyglass does hit the Scavenging Ooze, which actually ends up being relevant because I attack in. Opponent blocks. I'm okay with that trade because it was just a dumb 2-2, like a worthless 2-2, for a Devotion 2-2. We are able to now cast the Lovestruck Beast and the Human, and should have attacked in there. I don't know why I didn't with the Elvish Mystic. But now I can go on the aggressive with the Lovestruck Beast. Opponent decides to attack to keep me off, or to block to keep me off Pharika, but still, I think that his Devotion is more important than my Devotion. My opponent top decks a Nightthor Shrine of Nyx. They're netting up mana off the 3 Devotion off the Steel Leaf Champion. So I'm just losing a Lovestruck Beast that can then be scavenged. So here comes a Questing Beast. Questing Beast attacks in. I take some damage. we're able to go Rotting Regisaur and able to scavenge on the human token, meaning we can attack in with both the Pharika and the human token. My opponent's seen enough. At this point, they take 11 damage. If they don't block, if they do block, they lose some more devotion. I've got a blocker in the form of Rotting Regisaur that then can be scavenged onto something else. And then we're going to get lethal very quickly here with Varolz. So that was the game. So our version of Stompy beats their version of Stompy with the cool synergies, and that was a deck. So anyway, got kind of long-winded there with the overall gameplay. Hope these replays aren't too terrible. Like I said, it's impossible for me to find like a good block to sit down and play all these games right in a row, but I am very impressed with this deck. I think it performed phenomenally. You didn't get to see a lot of sideboard tech, but there wasn't a lot of things that I did in those games. A couple of those, of course, versus Control, brought in the Thoughtseizes versus anything I needed to kill, brought in Assassin's Trophy, brought in like Murderous Riders and Scavenging Oozes in that last matchup with the Gifted Aetherborns, because those are the things that are going to beat the mirrors. But very straightforward deck, very, very strong deck. Very impressed with this deck. Thank you for the suggestions in the comment section. This deck with the Rotting Regisaur, that was the missing piece with Varolz. Again, still need to tweak up the numbers a little bit. I want another Winding Constrictor, probably for a Lupine Prototype. Let's go ahead and add that right now with the Lupine Prototype. Oops, now we want that out. Winding. So we want a Winding Constrictor for a Lupine Prototype, and probably throw a Pharika over to the sideboard. And then at this point, I think that we can just put like a Scavenging Ooze in the main. And that's probably where I'd keep it at the moment. You could make the argument for another Jarad. I think we'll even do that. We're going to throw another Jarad and throw out another Lupine Prototype. And there we have another Jarad. But the thing is, when you start going too many cards that don't, like if you don't have the Lupine Prototypes in the graveyard, but 2 is probably the right number. Possibly, you know what, maybe we'll ditch a Scavenging Ooze back over to the sideboard and just ditch like a Gifted Aetherborn, and 3 is probably fine with the numbers, and that allows us to go another Lupine. And that's probably more of a, yeah, I like this list. And we'll call that good. I'll play some more matchups, see if we can 5-0 with this. I do have some other cool decks coming up, like a Dubious Challenge and a Leyline of Punishment deck that you'll have to wait and see. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video and Deck Tech. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.